Hey everybody, apologies right up front for the ridiculous look of my costume right now. As you all know, I recently had a surgery on my face, so this is all just a fun sort of costume to cover up my face while I'm still recovering from that surgery. Believe me, it's all a mess underneath this fake beard right here. But I apologize for my fun get-up, not because it's a fun get-up, but because this video that I'm about to show you is actually a clip from my Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1 review that gets into a little bit of a serious topic, talking about toxicity not only within Star Trek fandoms, but within pop culture fandoms today. And a few things that I think we really need to start talking more openly about, because if we don't talk about it, it's not going to get better.
The only context that you need to know for this section going in is that I start off this bit talking about a recent episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds that featured a non-binary character played by a trans woman actor, in which the character's LGBTQ identity is never overemphasized or focused on. They just exist as themselves and are just a character in the story. The actor's name in question was Jessie James Cattell, and she played a hilariously and wonderfully over-the-top villain within the episode.
Fire phasers. This is fun!
So that's really what you need to know going in, and it was one of my favorite episodes of the season, though I understand if people didn't like it. It's certainly not an episode to everyone's taste, but we'll get into discussing certain issues that I have with how people reacted to the episode, but I want to be clear right up front. If people didn't like the episode, if people didn't like the character, or even the show in general, that's totally fine, and that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about specific people in specific groups, and I'll get into that in just a second. And while this section starts off using that episode as an example of the discussion I wish to have around issues of toxic fandoms, it goes into further discussion surrounding the vilification of LGBTQ identities in pop culture today, white replacement anxiety, and much more beyond simply the Star Trek Strange New World context, and I felt it was important to share this clip because even if you're not a Trekkie, it's something we need to be talking about.
And I thought it was important enough to share with all of you on its own in its own individual video. So here it is, and I hope it's appreciated, and like I said, I hope it's taken in the spirit of trying to build up a Trek community rather than trying to tear it down, and trying to create conversations about things that should not be acceptable within any space right now, but especially a space like Star Trek, which has always been about taking delight in the differences of diversity in others. That being said, on with the clip. I do want to pause here because we need to discuss something kind of harder, and that is toxicity within Trek fandom. I get that camp over-the-top villain acting may not be everybody's taste. There were a ton of people that took to IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and Twitter to review bomb this episode. Ostensibly, they blamed their bad review on Cattell's bad acting. Yet if you looked at a lot of these reviews, you may see that critique combined with other critiques, like the episode was preachy.
Hit over the head with agenda. Spock gets a lesson on sexuality by a transgender actor. How woke. Him/her delivers their monologue on the obvious agenda they were put on the show for, and they lost any of the subtlety of the character, because a few of the viewers might not get it. So let's hit them over the head and drive that ideology home. Filled to the brim with agenda, bad tropes, and garbage plot lines.
Thanks. This episode was awkward from the beginning. Some fidelity to the Star Trek genre saved it. Why shove a bad actor down our throats and then use them to preach at us?
I'll still watch this despite this episode. The actor playing the villain can't act their way out of a paper bag. Forced and preachy. Ready to move on to the next episode.
Jesus Christ. After several increasingly promising episodes, they pull the rug from under us. Perhaps it was all an elaborate ruse to get people watching. Hopefully it's just a blip. But after the last 2 years of garbage, it's hard not to get worried. Poor writing, poor performances, and stupidly unsubtle, preachy identity politics once again infests modern Star Trek like a cancer. It's like they can't help themselves. This truly is a dire episode, made all the more apparent by how good the previous episode was.
One's sexuality is no substitute for having a required skill. Speaking as someone who is gay and had never had a problem with it, I found this episode, which I was initially, first 10 or so minutes, was enjoying. Yes, I could even tell the person playing Dr. Aspen want a biological woman. Big deal.
I think they meant wasn't a biological woman there, by the way, and oh boy, isn't it lovely code for transphobia when someone starts talking about biological women.
But when this person uses nothing but very tired shtick for attention, it quickly bored and annoyed me. And by this, I mean sexism persuasion has nothing to do with one's ability, but to make it their sole talent is ridiculous. I can name many actors, male and female, who are not straight but have talent, and one's sexuality is not something which should be relevant in any job, least of all acting, where one's supposed to become someone else. When this actor finally, sorry for the pun, came out as this episode's villain, the nightclub queer and shtick got very tired very fast. I gave up. I know everything takes time to settle down, and one day casting directors will wake up and realize they need an actor, not a gimmick. This person's nothing more, and I'm willing to bet after a few more appearances in the media, they'll disappear.
Why? Paramount, can you please relegate the political preaching to Discovery? What a disaster of an episode in every possible way. Bad writing, bad acting, tired and reused plotline, and shoehorning in identity politics in a completely contrived and unnecessary way. The series is so great up until this dumpster fire of an episode. Just stop it.
But this leads me to ask, what was preachy about this episode exactly? Because if you watch it, there's no overt political messaging. There's no moment where the character stops to talk about non-binary identities, which wouldn't be a problem even if it did, by the way, but there was no moment that seemed to explicitly call out to the audience that it wanted to preach a message at them. It was just an over-the-top villain character having some fun and camping it up on screen. So the only thing that I can think that is preachy about the episode in some people's minds is that it featured a trans woman actor. Because having a trans person exist in something is somehow equivalent to preaching.
I mean, compare the reaction to this episode of Strange New Worlds to a recent episode of the Star Trek adjacent The Orville series titled A Tale of Two Topaz. Despite my mixed reaction to the Orville's discussion of LGBTQ issues in past seasons, I thought this episode actually did a fantastic job discussing both intersex and trans issues in a real nuanced way, and I did a whole review praising it. However, the issue is, that show has literally zero LGBTQ human characters, and the intersex and trans story in the episode was told through an alien metaphor rather than literally. So as a result, I had a ton of people comment on my review of the episode to say how anti-woke this episode was, despite it being literally more preachy about LGBTQ issues than anything Strange New Worlds was doing. Many of them even misinterpreted the episode as being something just alien or even anti-transgender or anti-intersex, because they sadly haven't been given the media literacy to understand that this metaphor was about human things, not just alien ones. I was deeply impressed with not forcing gender change due to an agenda. This is a good job of saying genderism is irrelevant to children. Keep their sex until of age.
How is this a trans issue? Topa was a biological girl converted to a boy by a society that rejects women. They only want males. It almost seems to make the opposite argument against changing one's gender.
So powerful to show the terrible consequences of forcing transgenderism on children. Bravo, Seth MacFarlane.
It showcases how, to many people, LGBTQ identities are so otherized and alien that they don't even see us as human, as something that can exist. To many of these people, they see queer people as fictional or a delusion, and so they only allow our issues to be with fictional types of characters and species, instead of allowing us to just have fun being in Star Trek, just being ourselves like everyone else. Allegory makes it too easy to think of our struggles as not real, as fantasy or science fiction. And I'm not saying that Allegory is bad, but we can't only exist there. We need to exist as ourselves, for ourselves, so people can't look away from us and say, oh, trans people, they aren't really real. They're just alien, strange, weird, delusional metaphors. Also, as an aside, I recently also did a video talking about the Orville and the failures and benefits of using science fiction allegory to talk about literal LGBTQ issues, so check out that video if you're curious. Don't get me wrong, I want Star Trek to tell our stories too. There should be more queer issues put into Trek. But the issue I'm talking about here is that people just see our mere presence, the mere allowance of a trans person to be publicly visible in a work of fiction, as a political act, as preachy, as more preachy than actually talking about our issues is. And while I'm talking about fandoms and pop culture here, this same feeling is what has led movements around the world to try to vilify LGBTQ people for being seen in public spaces, as well as many anti-transgender and anti-LGBTQ legislations both around the world and especially here in the United States.
It's the same thing that angered me when I saw people saying that Star Trek Discovery was preachy and shoving queerness down your throats. That any show that has a queer person in it, just existing as we usually do, is somehow preaching to the audience just by our natural existence.
If you want another quick example, even as I was writing this video, I came across this meme getting a lot of traction in online Trek circles that argues that a non-binary alien character from an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that was literally all about gender and sexuality was a completely well-rounded character, while two trans characters, one being non-binary, one being a trans man from Star Trek Discovery, were somehow all just about their sexual identity and bad writing, quote-unquote. Now, to be clear, it is not transphobia to dislike Star Trek Discovery or dislike its writing. I honestly don't care if you like or dislike Star Trek Discovery. In fact, I welcome that conversation. But this meme and this idea is transphobic. I mean, it forgets that the original Star Trek The Next Generation episode that this non-binary alien was from was literally all about sexual identity. That was the point of the episode and the character.
We have not injured you in any way. And yet we are scorned and attacked. And all because we are different.
Yet, it gets considered to be well-rounded because it's a metaphor. It also forgets the fact that the Star Trek Discovery characters have had numerous storylines like focusing on becoming a Trill Guardian, or one of them becoming a better engineer, or finding more confidence in themselves. But they're considered to be all about sexual identity just because they're trans and existing publicly. Many of their storylines have nothing to do with their sexual identity or their gender identity, but they're considered to be all about that just because they are literally trans, and people think that trans people existing on screen means that we're somehow always talking about gender identity. Because when people see us, that's what they're thinking about, even if we're talking about completely different things. This continually shows how trans people just being publicly visible is constantly seen as somehow more sexual and political than even talking about our own discrimination is, as long as that discrimination is made palatable to a cisgender, non-transgender audience. Some people don't wish to see us as human and only wish to engage with us as palatable allegory meant to teach other people about us. They can't imagine trans people getting to exist outside of how we are discriminated against, that we live full lives outside of the bigotry that we sometimes face.
Now, I understand, to a degree, where this feeling comes from, even though I condemn the way that it's expressed. The feeling stems from many people not ever seeing queer people authentically portrayed and not experiencing queer people in their everyday life, though more than likely they probably met a queer person, they just don't know it. But because they've never had an explicit chance to be around queer people existing around them in media that they love sticks out to them. And so because it sticks out to them, they start to see it as inherently preachy. And whenever there's a moment that's explicitly queer, like the Adira scene in Star Trek Discovery, their one scene where they discuss their pronouns, they'll say that it's beating you over the head with representation.
I've never felt like a she or a her, so I would prefer they or them from now on.
Okay. When, to me and to many queer people, that scene was one of the most natural parts of a non-binary person's life. Every non-binary person has had to explain their pronouns to someone else. It's not preachy, it's just part of our existence. And it's one scene that people still harp on to this day as being over the top and preachy, despite the fact that Adira has existed in an entire season after this moment and has had numerous scenes that have not touched upon their non-binary or transgender identity. Not that it would be a problem if they had. So let me be clear here. It is not transphobia to dislike a trans actor's acting, like Jessie James Cattell's acting in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's okay to not like it. What is transphobia, though, is to equate your dislike of their acting with their transness, and hide behind the critique of bad acting as a critique to argue against a trans person even being in a show. It's also transphobia to call a trans character's simple existence preachy, simply for being ourselves. We are as normal as you are, our existence just hasn't been normalized by our society today. Further, building off of this, I take issue with people assuming that their opinion on a trans actor's bad acting or their discussion of LGBTQ representation is objectively right, and that everyone else must have an agenda if they do indeed like it. After I praised Cattell's acting in my review of the episode because I earnestly resonated with her performance, some people told me that I must be lying in order to force my trans agenda upon them because no one could possibly like her acting objectively. These people never even considered that I might earnestly have liked her acting, as many people did. Just because the world has catered to your viewpoint forever does not mean that your opinion is ubiquitous or objective. I won't lie, I am biased. Queer people love camp, and the wonderful James Somerton did a great video on why queer people resonate with camp acting. But all of us, every single one of us, is biased. We all have things that we resonate with and don't resonate with. Even as a critic like I try to believe myself to be, I am going to have biases. All of us do. You don't have to like something, but don't assume that your opinion is ubiquitous and that it is objectively right, and that anyone who disagrees with you must be lying as a result. That is transphobia, because trans people are often assumed to be lying or deceitful as an inherent part of our identity. That we're lying about being women, for example, if you're a trans woman. So to use that trope to say that I was lying about my review of Star Trek because I had an agenda, that I take deep issue with. And on top of all of this, I am honestly tired of the collective hissy fit that some groups do over the simple existence of queer folks in media. I mean, conservatives literally had a meltdown because two girls kissed in the recent Pixar movie Lightyear for 2 seconds, with a Utah theater even saying they'll fast forward through it, like a freaking parent skipping the scary parts of a movie.
These are the same people currently throwing a bit of a hissy fit because a trans character appeared in the Disney Plus series Baymax, arguing that it's sexualizing children.
Thank you.
I prefer pads. They're more comfortable for me.
Thank you.
I always get the ones with wings.
Thank you.
Get them scented and bleach-free if you can.
Thank you.
Yo, my daughter loves these.
Thank you.
These might be easier if it's her first period.
Thank
These are really environmentally friendly.
What is going on here? What is going on here? So I don't know, is Baymax, is he a robot or an alien, or is he an alien robot? Is he a boy or a girl? I have no idea. But yes, there was a boy character, a male character wearing a trans shirt, of course. And he says what kind of tampons he uses. What parent is letting their kids watch this shit? This absolute shit. They are coming for your children's brains. Is that not enough to get you to wake up to wokeness?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave Rubin. Is Baymax being a robot way too confusing for you? Yeah, then I guess that would make trans people entirely too scary. Ooh, they depicted a trans man who has periods. You know, people who exist in real life. Oh, for 2 whole seconds. Oh, it's so scary and awful. Honestly, this is just childish behavior by grown-ass adults who throw a hissy fit when even the most casual and passing existence of a trans person is slightly acknowledged around them. And it's also so clear that people like Dave Rubin and a lot of other right-wing conservative media people, and a lot of people in government, by the way, complaining about this 2-second scene or anything to do with trans people is really just trying to rally transphobia to build their brand or their base. Like, for example, when Rubin tweeted my own tweet pushing back against his intentional misgendering and dead naming of Elliot Page, to then immediately try to peddle his merchandise in that same freaking tweet. It's so gross and blatant, and don't worry, I have a video in the works about this issue. As my friend and fellow YouTuber Jose put it, white cis men are always allowed to be mediocre characters. If someone claims something is bad writing, but only seems to focus on characters from marginalized groups, it's not the writing that bothers them. They're either lying or need to ask themselves some tough questions. Oh, also, quick aside on Dave Rubin, but he blocked me after I called him out on this, which is hilarious. I started this Pride Month getting harassed by Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire and his followers, and then I turned 30 and got a gender confirmation surgery during Pride Month, and ended the month getting blocked by Dave Rubin, so I feel like I did Pride right this year, y'all. And if you are someone who is fans of these people, I'm not here to tell you you're a terrible person. I'm here to tell you that these people are lying to you, just peddling this stuff, just peddling hatred in order to get you to buy their merchandise or vote for them. They don't actually care about issues that actually affect you. Trans people don't affect you. We just want to exist. Let's actually talk about real important things. But so many people don't hear that message. They just want to throw a whiny hissy fit about trans people existing in a kid's cartoon.
Grow up. It's so clear that this feeling is ultimately coming from an anxiety over the fear of a replacement that fuels so much of the conservative movement nowadays, leading the way for the current anti-LGBTQ, anti-women, anti-black, anti-brown, anti-indigenous, anti-Asian, and anti-other POC and anti-other marginalized groups movements that we see across the United States today, with more and more legislations being pushed hurting marginalized groups, like, for example, trans people, that I see every single day and affects me every single day. I totally agree that representation can be performative, and that companies can sometimes shove representation into things because they want to get the progressive points. That's clearly what's going on with Lightyear. Those 2 queer characters are certainly not there because Disney believes in queer representation, but because they feel like they probably will make more money by having that representation in there, but aren't really doing anything substantive to actually show queer people. But this means that we should have better and more representation, not none at all. This should be the baseline, not the end goal. So get used to it and stop complaining that it's too much or preachy. And finally, since I'm on this train, and thank you so much for following me here, I am so done with this white replacement nonsense in fandoms. I constantly see this backlash against any people of color appearing in a work of media. We saw it with the character of Admiral April in Strange New Worlds, who appeared as a black man in this show despite being white in a cartoon show in the 1970s. Some fans got all up in arms about it, claiming that it breaks canon, when that animated series canonicity has always been dubious, and these people often argued against the original series canonicity when it suited them to hate on Star Trek Discovery just a few years ago. It's very clear that the real problem they have is with the man's skin color. We also saw it recently with the character of Reva in Obi-Wan Kenobi, with the actress Moses Ingram receiving a ton of hate simply for existing.
There's nothing anybody can do about this. There's nothing anybody can do to stop this hate. And so I question what my purpose is, and even being here in front of you saying that this is happening. I don't really know. But I think the thing that bothers me is that, like, sort of this feeling that I've had inside of myself, which no one has told me, but this feeling of like, I just gotta shut up and take it. You know, I just kind of gotta bear it. And I'm not built like that. So I really just wanted to come on, I think, and say thank you to the people who show up for me in the comments and the places that I'm not gonna put myself. And to the rest of y'all weird.
We also saw it recently too in Marvel with the MCU, with people review bombing the show Miss Marvel on Disney Plus because they argued that the Muslim Kamala Khan was here to replace the white woman Carol Danvers character, which wasn't the case. Captain Marvel's still gonna get her own damn movie. But it's still funny how they'll use a white woman like Brie Larson, who they attacked, by the way, when she was seen to be replacing Captain America only a few short years ago, to delegitimize a Pakistani girl's place in a work of fiction. It all stems from this white replacement narrative anxiety being fueled outside of these fandoms, being pushed by people like Tucker Carlson and Republicans in power in general.
Know that the left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement, if you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. Let's just say it, that's true.
Those ideologies lead to more harmful actions and ideologies like we saw, sadly, recently with the Buffalo shooter. And it's very clear that these things pop up in pop culture because it's used as a place to feed and fuel these anxieties without it having been seen as political. We saw it with things like Gamergate, where literally people like Breitbart and Steve Bannon utilized the Gamergate movement to gain power and a foothold in media establishment. So if we do not allow these narratives in our political discourse, I will not allow them in my fandoms. So, that being said, do cis white dudes have a place in the future? Yes. I adore you, I love you. I mean, I stand my Captain Pike. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations means that you are part of that future, but you don't always get to be the ones in control. That I hold you dear only if you do the same for everyone and allow everyone an equal place, not a subordinate place. And I won't stand for it in my fandoms or my communities. Not to mention, I am tired of the perpetual motion outrage machine that needs to hate on every new entry of a show because outrage is what fuels the clicks. So much of our world today is fueled by doom scrolling about hating on things, to be angry at something. That's how much of our social media and political discourse is run by at this point, on the fumes of our hatred and anger. Well, I'm done with it. And I want to be clear, if you hate modern Star Trek, that's cool. I didn't like Star Trek Picard Season 2, or even Season 1 for that matter. I'm not here to dictate to you what you should or should not watch, only to give you my opinion, which I hope is backed up by my years of practicing writing and doing critique and my expertise, hopefully, in the field. But there are those out there who don't provide nuanced critique, but just hate on the new thing. If your criticisms come down to regurgitating phrases like preachy, woke, forced diversity, that's not nuanced. That's just fueling all the stuff I've been talking about. Art is really a conversation, and critique is participating in a discussion with art and each other, not in some antagonistic relationship with it. The endless polarized discourse of best ever and worst ever doesn't fuel good conversation, only antagonism, and only benefits those who instigate it. It's the same in politics, honestly, and fandom anxieties are often then sublimated into real-world prejudices. Instead of saying thing good or thing bad or giving a numbered score, let's talk about what worked, what didn't, what resonated with you, what didn't, and have a conversation about what the art is trying to say. That's ultimately what I think we all need to hear. And we need to do it by listening to each other, not yelling at each other. And making sure that we do not stand for the people who do not allow that conversation to happen and push them out where they belong.
thank you everybody for watching this video, and most especially thank you to all of my patrons who make all of this possible. I would not be able to do these videos without you, without your support, and take the time to make them. I would not be able to take the time to have gotten this surgery and heal and just be so joyously happy in my life and in my body. All of this is thanks to you, so thank you to each and every one of my patrons, and especially to Catherine and Beth, Morgan, the Pirate Green, Kari, Aaron Foss, Joe Herman Holt, Miranda Janelle, Elysia Titivy, Lily Gray, Ashley Allen Bo, Kikio, Stephen Kleinar, Jem Shin, Mary Mello, Matt Chung, Allie Gobert, Each the Mad, Randy Thompson, Super Desi, Wellington Marcus, Boyd and Mary Beth, Earl, D. Cassaray, Vincent Ellington, G. Man 42, Joseph Dewey, Silvestreto, Chloe Dollar, Felicia Toast, James Krivda, Dominic Noble, Barbara Ruski, Elizabeth Christensen, Jennifer Fuss, Zone 1 Librarian, Jessica Wright, Andy with an I, Sunk Corgi, Sean McKenzie, Nathan Fraughton, Lily Hazel Eyes, Sonia Nero Perdeau, Alicia Strice, Farangato, Mag, Transit Toronto, Wendy Zabizzle, Shield Maiden 4444. Sasha M, W Randy Edie, Pissed and Twisted Garage, John Weatherby, Tangy Wilson, Steven Richardson, Melinda Walters, Carrie the Neuroturtle, I like that, Neuroturtle, that's a fun one, Zoe Kerr, Ulysses the Pagan, Beatrix Purvis, Kevin Frotag, Drew Bach, Willow B, Cyber Quaker, Casual Observer, Fox E, Sean Piper, Lysa Flynn, Gretchen Badger, Just Odd, Jedi, Indiana Jones, don't know why I said it that way, Blueberry Hill, Justine, Meadow Whisperer, Patricia Cromptich, William Stewart, Sarah Leslie Hutchkins, Sarah Bystam, Sarah Lemero, Kay List, Laura Demeraux, Becky Sparks, Skyscanner, Nathan Steele, Blue, Verdict Sky, Melody Ann Winters Good, Hia Reeses, Troy Stull, Jason Knott, Tony the DC Nerd, I love you too, DC is awesome, suck it Marvel. I love Marvel too. Leo Ethel Boyd, Celestial Dawn, Maeve, Holly Walters, Nikki Gordon Bloomfield, Luna T, Strawberry Pup Tart, Spooky, Heather Sylvia, Michael Godey, Abigail Marie, Bella Lugosi, James Hodge, Corey and Vale, Honkinen. Mwah! Y'all kick butt. I love you, adore you, take care of yourselves, make sure you're staying safe, and I hope you all live long and prosper, my friends.